Today, we're diving into one of the trickiest parts of communication, giving feedback. You know, that moment when you want to be honest, but you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or make things awkward. Maybe it's a coworker, a partner, or a friend, and you want to help, but you don't want to humiliate. Somehow the words come out wrong, or the other person shuts down. Giving feedback is an art. It's about helping someone grow without making them feel small. So today we're sharing four simple, powerful tips for giving feedback that actually land.
One of our listeners, Where is H, said, such a great listen on a much needed topic.
Thank you. Where is H? That's a very clever name.
Welcome to Communication Skills for Working Women. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Rose May. Do you find yourself second guessing or avoiding conversations because you're worried about being misunderstood?
You're not alone. On this show, we're sharing tangible tools for assertiveness, emotional resilience, and real life communication wins and fails.
Let's sharpen our communication together.
Well, to get things started off today, Rose and I just want to just talk for a second about truly the challenge of giving feedback, professionally giving feedback in when you're in charge of a project, when you're in charge of an event, when you're in charge of a group of people, as just a person. I mean, feedback, we really are giving feedback all the time. But we're going to focus more on like feedback around scenarios.
Elizabeth, do you have a story you want to share?
Sure. I
Okay.
mean, not really, but yes. I mean, yes, I have a lot of stories. Do I really want to share? No, but I'm going to share. I was in a meeting a little while ago, and in this meeting, there were some things that happened that I just felt so uncomfortable about how they
Ooh,
happened.
right.
It was like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you've left a meeting and you're just like, oh, this was just not okay. I wish you
Yeah.
all could see Rosemary's face right now.
Well, I work with therapists. What do you think happens in most of our meetings?
But I think this happens in a lot of places.
Does. It happens in a lot of places, yeah.
So I was in this meeting and I'm a doer. I'm an action taker, okay? So I'm immediately like, I need to let the person who is in charge know about all of my thoughts and feelings. I needed to give feedback. And I sat on it for a while. I came home, actually, I like typed up everything that I thought, was thinking, feeling. I put it in an email. I did not address the email. I did not put anybody, so it didn't accidentally get sent. But it was just, I learned that skill. Um, but I just had it in this email and I slept on it. I took time to, which we'll talk about, like to get clear about what I really wanted to say. Okay. And I was like, okay, the next day I was like, oh, that's kind of like my stuff kind of coming up. These other things are actually important things that I think I should give feedback on. Okay. So I waited until I was calm. I read the email and I felt calm when I read the email. Like it didn't rile me up, right? Like it was just like, okay, this is good information that this person who I deeply respect this individual and I just think they do a phenomenal job with everything that they do, which says a lot about them too, because I felt comfortable giving unsolicited feedback. So I shared this because too, this leader, I feel like they do care about the people that they work with. And so I'm like, if this impacted me this much, I'm 100% certain that they want to know. I'm actually not 100% certain that they wanted to know, but anyway, so I sent this email and the response back was very kind and a little bit not what I expected. where it was like kind of
Bad,
explain.
not what you expected, or
Yeah, I mean, I expected them to be kind, but
right.
they were explaining what they were explaining their decisions about how things went.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, how I said this put them on the defensive because
Hmm.
I wasn't asking for an explanation or anything like that. I thought I was sharing how this impacted me.
Don't you think that that's really common though? Like whenever we are, maybe we'll talk more about this when we're talking about receiving feedback, but when we're receiving feedback, like we're automatically defensive and we feel like we have to justify our decisions or our thoughts or our actions. I feel like
Absolutely.
that. Even in like a relationship, right?
Uh, yes.
And you did X, Y, and Z, and that, this impacted me this way. And I feel like, oh, if you just understand where I'm coming from, then you won't be sad. Right? Or you won't
Right.
be hurt or whatever. And yeah, I feel like that's happened. Like I've been the person on the other side of that email.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I received their email back, I was like, dang it, Elizabeth, you know how to give feedback better than because then I reread my email and I was like, shoot. And so my response
Mhm.
to their email was I actually said, I wish I would have said da 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 da.
Mhm.
And then I set my email up completely differently. I set it up and I expressed my appreciation for them. I expressed the insight that I received during the meeting. I expressed my trust in them and my respect for them.
Mhm.
And then I talked about our united goals of what we were accomplishing in this meeting and how it impacted me. The response back was so different. I was like, oh my goodness. Not that it was so different. This individual is, again, I said very kind and I deeply respect them. After I restructured that email, it opened up for a conversation around what the concerns really were.
Mm.
And so there you have it. Like, we don't, giving feedback is hard.
Yeah.
And you can give feedback and you can like try again. Like if
Yeah.
it doesn't land, because I was like, man, I wanted to open up a conversation here. I didn't want to shut it down. But I tried again.
Yeah.
And then it led to a verbal conversation. And it was really helpful. And it opened up a lot of reflection on my part. Instead of debriefing everything with me, we are going to walk through our 6 step process and give some tips along the way about giving feedback.
So the first and foremost step in this process, and like every process, honestly, when you're interacting with other human beings, is really just to clarify the goal. What are you wanting to achieve, right? So get
Mhm.
clear on the goal. What do you want to have? What do you want to, where are we going? We want to give feedback that helps someone improve, right, without damaging the relationship. Um, and I what one of the things that you said was really stuck out to me is that this person, well, you said this a couple times, but just the way that this person interacts with individuals, it sounds like very positively. He's for the most part a
Absolutely.
very, and creates a space where people can interact with him in a very positive way. That really stuck out to me. And even thinking about like giving feedback, I think that at the end of the day, we really want even if it's painful, we want a positive experience, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the whole point. And so I think even like being clear on like how you want this to look
Mhm.
or feel, right? At the end of the day, even if it's not received as well as you would like, but at the end of the day, like what are we really trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z is really important. Um,
And I would say because I had clarified my goal before I sent the feedback, like I waited till I wasn't emotional, I knew that I wanted to open up conversation. When I gave that initial feedback and the response wasn't what I like it didn't open up conversation. I was so focused on being on the I was so clear on that goal that pivoting and trying again was very easy because I knew what I wanted to accomplish.
Mhm.
But had I not clarified that, it could have been a very difficult
Well, it
situation.
wasn't clear the first time, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, it was clear for me, but
Yes.
I didn't give it in a way because it was almost like I forgot to set it up for them. That
Mhm.
I was like, I should have just specified, I want to have a conversation around this, but instead I just went in and gave my unsolicited feedback. So, did you want to add anything to the clarity?
So that's it.
All right. So the next step that we always talk about is identifying our behaviors, things that we are doing or that we aren't doing that we want to change. So in this scenario, I talked about how I like dumped all of my thoughts and feelings, but then I slept on it and waited until I wasn't emotional about it. And so that's something to consider. So setting the stage before you give feedback. Where are you giving the feedback? Are you doing it at a time when they're comfortable? Like, are you telling your kid as they're getting ready for bed, clean up your room? Or is it the day before, like, hey, we need to make sure our room is cleaned up? That's a totally different example. Sorry, got a little sidetracked on.
Relevant. Relevant. Yeah.
But in reality, we're giving people feedback all of the time.
Right.
So, but we're staying focused on in a more professional environment. So, setting the stage, focusing on the behavior. So, being really, really clear and focusing on the behavior and really believing that everybody is good and doing their best. And always working towards collaboration is something also important to do. And so, the identifying your behaviors of what you're doing and not doing, you need to just make sure you're really clear before you can really take time to identify your behaviors.
Yeah. And again, like we're speaking about giving feedback, but we're talking specifically about identifying your behavior and
Mm,
not the other person's behaviors.
correct.
You did say that, but as I'm thinking about this, my brain automatically goes to, yeah, I'm going to identify the behavior I want them to change. No, it's not about the other person. It's the behavior you want to change, right?
Uh,
So you did a great job of that. Like you set them up. You even use those words. Like I set them up, and not in a manipulative way, but you set up, you created a space where someone else could be open for a conversation. Right. Step three, surface hidden commitments. Here's the tricky part. Sometimes, even when we know what we should do, we don't do it. And that's because we are committed to some belief or some fear that we're not even fully aware of. For feedback, some common hidden commitments are things like if I'm honest, I might hurt someone, right? Or I might hurt some feelings, or I'll jeopardize this relationship. Or if I point out a mistake, they'll dislike me. And we want to give feedback, but part of us is secretly trying to avoid being rejected or creating some conflict. And that fear keeps us stuck. I literally just had a flashback of a situation where someone said something in a public space that was it felt really exploitative to the people of color in the room. And there were only three of us, and we were really good friends. And so we talked about it. We talked about it afterwards. And like I approached my friends and I was like, did this feel a little invasive and inappropriate? And immediately they were both like, yes. And and I just thought, like, how could I know this person that shared this story or shared this experience that was not their intention. But it didn't take away from the impact. And I thought to myself, how could I give them feedback in a way? I also didn't know this
Mm,
person. I didn't have a relationship with this person, but I knew that their intentions from this story was not to be hurtful. It was definitely very invasive and exploitative. So I thought to myself, how could I give this person some feedback? And as I kept going back and forth in my mind, I realized I'm really committed to not being the person who brings something up
mm,
because of race, right? That's always,
right.
why do you make everything about race? I hear that quite often. I'm like, well, I navigate my life part of my life is navigated by the race that exists. Yes.
Right.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
but I realized like I was really committed to not being the bad guy in this situation or not making everything about race, like I've heard a million times, or not being the person who's like aggressive. And so it took me a really, really, really long time to craft that email. I'm talking weeks. And then by the time I did, I realized she probably wouldn't even know the story that I was talking about or the incident that I was, because so many weeks had gone by, but I was very much committed to not being the bad guy.
As you're talking, I'm considering the scenario that I was in too. I talked about how a conversation happened from it, but between the emails and the actual conversation was a few weeks.
Hmm.
And in that time, I too did a lot of self-reflection. And I'm like, man, I'm feeling uncomfortable about having this conversation. I
Hmm.
don't even want to have this conversation anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but then I was like, why don't I want to have this conversation anymore? Like, what is my hidden commitment? Because I'm like, the things that I brought up in that email, I do deeply, deeply care about. But then I'm like, it's funny you said aggressive because that was a word I used this last week too. When I was thinking about this, I was like, oh, I don't want to come across as aggressive.
Hmm.
And I'm like, but there's nothing about this that's actually aggressive.
Right?
But that was the word that I used too, was aggressive. And I was just like, everyone, and I have this deep, and I know this because I want this too. Like, I want people to assume the best in me.
Yes.
And I also like, I'm gonna learn things. I say this to my husband all the time. Do you know how many things Rose has pointed out to me that I'm so grateful she has pointed out to me because I
What
just didn't know?
what are you talking about? Okay, another podcast episode next
Another
time.
podcast, another time. But had I not had somebody like Rosemary in my life who brought something to my attention, I would have never known probably. And so, and it's not that I'm out trying to like make the world a better place and like, oh, you need to do this and it'll make it better. But when there's something that deeply impacts me, I'm like, I'm not the only person that's been impacted like
Oh
this.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? And so, like, you had other friends in the room that you were thinking about as well. And anyway, that's really interesting that, like, the hidden commitment of not wanting to be aggressive, not wanting to point this out, wanting to like allow the individual to have their own journey. Because I'm like, this is a good
Sure.
person. They're
Absolutely.
figuring things out too.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so,
And it's this conflict of for me, it's this conflict of speaking up and living congruent with my values because my values,
yes,
like part of my, but it is very important to me to be able to be an advocate for others, to speak
yes.
up when I notice that something is amiss or awry.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's this internal conflict between like being committed to my values, but also being committed to like not being an aggressive person, right?
Right,
Not being a troublemaker really is what it comes down to.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So keeping that peace.
Yeah.
The next step, once we realize what we're actually committed to, which Rose and I have just revealed a lot, we examine the big assumption. So we make some big assumptions in this. Uh, the assumption that we're going to be viewed aggressive.
Hmm.
Like, if I point this out, they're going to think that I'm aggressive. If I point this out, they're going to think, oh, all she cares about is race.
Hmm.
Oh, if I point this out, they're just going to think that, oh, she's a feminist of some sort, like whatever. And not that there's anything
Or
wrong with,
insert
right,
negative connotation to word. Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And, or they're going to think I'm mean, or they're going to think I'm nitpicky, or they're going to not feel appreciated for what they did. And so it's really interesting the big assumptions that we make when we sit back and look at our hidden commitments.
Yeah. And it's important to notice these because they're what make us hesitate and often make our feedback land poorly because we're committed to
Exactly.
some other things, right? Um,
Absolutely. Yes.
After you've examined those, the next step is to experiment with new behaviors, right? So this is the exciting part. This is where we test our assumptions with small, safe experiments. And here's where four feedback tips come in. Number one is set the stage before you speak. Great job, Elizabeth. You did that. You
I
pivoted.
that was in my redo.
No,
That
that was
wasn't
your
in my
redo. That was your
initial. That was
do-over.
in my
That's okay.
redo.
That's okay. We're all humans, man. but you did. You set the stage. I sent a letter, I sent an email. I set the stage. I appreciated, there was parts of her stories that were really meaningful and valuable. And then
So
I
you did
asked,
send the email.
I did send the email and I asked her, I said, would you be open to hearing what that experience was for me as you were
Mm.
speaking? Because I was like, I can't, I'm not, no one's going to respond any way, shape, or form positively to, would you be open to telling you what you did wrong? Right.
Or just telling
But,
someone what they did wrong from your
or,
perspective.
yes, yes.
That
But
doesn't
I
go
was
well
like,
either.
no, but again, like going back to my values and going back to like the purpose, like I'm not trying to tell someone what they did wrong. I'm trying to help someone understand how that story might impact someone else
Right.
who doesn't look like them, right?
Right.
And so I just asked her if she would be open to hearing my experience, which I also think can be very connecting, right? Which is another value for
Absolutely.
me. Um,
Absolutely.
so setting the stage
Oh
before
my
you talk
gosh. You
is
just
number
saying
one.
that, I'm like, what if my original email had just been, hey, I really appreciated being in that meeting. And I was wondering if I could share with you how some of the things that happened in this meeting impacted me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, just saying that sounds so much better. And like you said, it builds connection. Like there's
Mhm.
so many good parts
Yeah.
from you giving feedback.
Well, remember it took me like weeks and I didn't even think she's gonna. Anyways, that wasn't something that came automatically. I had to think about it for a long time. Um, but yes, this lowers defenses and it signals that our intention is to be connection is for connection or, something that's much more constructive. So set the stage before you speak. Number two, focus on behavior, not character. Again, I honestly believe that this woman, she was sharing something that was so special to her and
Hmm.
so powerful for her. And I didn't need to attack her character. I could just let her know that when you do X, Y, and Z, this is this is the impact that it has, right? So focusing on her behavior, not her character. I don't need to label her, I can just tell her what I observed or what I experienced, right? And so it becomes factual and it can be a little bit personal too, but not personal in the way that we're attacking someone else, right? We're not
Right.
attacking her for what's going on.
Right.
Um, Number three is balance honesty with empathy, combine truth with kindness. And this is so hard, but we've had many an episode where we've talked about how kindness is truth. Did you say Brene Brown said that? Who'd you say
Hmm.
said that? Yeah.
Yeah. I know Dr. Ammon says kind is clear.
Yeah. Someone says that. Maybe it's Brene. I don't know.
I
Somebody I know.
think Brene Brown says something
She
like
said
that.
something like that, right? Yeah. So you don't have to sugarcoat. Right. You don't just sugarcoat what you're saying, but you can definitely come from a space of kindness and empathy. I was just talking to a colleague just before this episode. Actually talking about having conversations, really tough, difficult conversations. And we were saying that when someone is willing to listen, the way that I feel like I approach them is so much more kind and thoughtful and intentional than when someone is super defensive.
Hmm.
And being defensive is a natural part of just like our experience as human beings. But I just noticed that with myself, like it's so much easier for me to be kind when I'm telling the truth when someone can be open, right? So maybe
Absolutely.
that's a receiving feedback tip. But so set the stage before you speak, focus on on behavior, not character, balance honesty with empathy, and last but not least, and with collaboration, not correction. So invite some dialogue. How does that land for you? Or what do you think would help this go smoother next time? This helps to turn feedback into a shared problem solving moment that builds trust rather than tension, right? Or even I'm just trying to think about the situation that I was in, like, um, would it be helpful to kind of talk about like maybe even a cultural context for this situation and why, or even like discover together like what this looks like and how other people might be experiencing this? Like we can talk about that together to give more context or whatever, right? Just so you're
Right.
aware, uh,
Right.
but can be very helpful. So set the stage, focus on behavior, not character, balance honesty with empathy, and end with collaboration, not correction.
And then once you've experimented and you've done some of these things, reflect and then repeat. Did I act on my goal? Was I clear? How was it received? Okay, the first time I thought I acted on my goal and it wasn't received how I had intended it to be. So then guess what? I tried again. Like, okay, so it didn't go how I wanted, and I tried again. And then we ended up having a conversation, and like, so just try, and it's okay to mess it up and try
Mhm.
again, and it will get better and better, and you will just feel better. Your capacity will grow, your confidence will increase. Like, especially if you are clear on what you're trying to accomplish, it's worth the effort of experimenting and reflecting.
Okay, let's recap those 4 tips. Number 1, set the stage before you speak. Number 2, focus on behavior, not character. Number 3, balance honesty with empathy. And number 4, end with collaboration, not correction. Giving feedback doesn't have to be scary. It's a skill that helps to build stronger teams, deepen relationships, and facilitate real growth. The key is to remember that feedback is an invitation, not an indictment.
We hope that this conversation helped you in some way, especially during this end of year when we're getting so much feedback, whether it's a professional end of year reviews or sitting around the table with our family. We would love for you to connect with us. On Facebook, find us at Develop Confidence and Relationships Through Effective Communication Skills. Visit our website at communicateconnectthrive.com or email us at communicationskillsforwomen@gmail.com. Until next time, speak clearly and listen bravely.
When you feel confident in your communication, everything changes.
We'd love to hear your wins, failures, and insights on Instagram at Communication Skills for Women. Leave a review and connect with us.
Until next time, speak clearly and listen bravely.